Good morning, Facebook land. I'm Paul Sterling here. I am a relationship and intimacy coach. I wrote a best-selling book called Argue Less, Love More. And today's talk is how do you stay compassionate and connected and communicate in at times when things are challenging and crazy and stressful. So this is Compassionate Talk, and this is, I work with couples, and I have several other people that do this together, this talk. So every morning, 9 a.m., I'm still having my morning coffee, thank you. Every morning, 9 a.m. West Coast time, every evening, 6 p.m. West Coast time. Either Scott Katamas, Debbie G, or one of the other love coaches are on this call. And it's, the whole idea of this call was to offer support during stressful times, to give people communication tools, connection tools, empathy tools, understanding relationships better. And so I am mainly focusing on relationships and relationship communication. So this morning, grab your notebook. I am, as you look behind me, a little bit of the mad professor of love. And my whole idea is, how do you make love last? And how do you communicate in a way that connects you during these stressful times rather than pushes you away? Because we basically communicate from 3 different places. So I'm grabbing out my little guys here. How many of you speak a different language? So you can type your answers in. The more that you interact, the more that you're going to get out of it. So today, I'm going to give you a little bit of it's not a different language, but it's using language in a different way. And it's the language of love. And the language of love is communicating from your heart. So here we go. There are 3 different ways that we communicate, or 3 different areas we communicate from. We communicate from our head. And how do you know when you're communicating from your head? If you're talking about the facts. Tell me the facts. Understanding is important. Knowledge is key. I want to know when it happened. I don't care how you feel about it. I want to know the facts. Now, that's like one language. Then if you're communicating from your heart, you're speaking a very different language, because it's all about connection and empathy and understanding. And we don't care as much about the facts when we're in our heart. What we want to know is the feelings. So I've gone to a lot of Spanish-speaking countries, Mexico, Belize, Bali. No, not Bali. Bali, not Mexico, Spanish-speaking, but I've been to Bali, taught there. Anyway, when you're speaking a different language, it's like when one person's speaking from their head and the other speaking from their heart, it's almost like different languages. And this causes a lot of upsets in relationships. And then there's a third language. So there's from the head, from the heart, and from the hurt. And this is what creates so many upsets. And one of the things I said in my little write-up about today is, what stops open and honest communication in its tracks, and what blocks almost any chance of intimacy? And so what stops open and honest communication in its tracks? That's part of what I wrote in the book, Argue Less, Love More. There's 5 different things that stop open and honest communication. And number 1 is case building. Case building is, you're in a relationship and anything you say can and will be used against you in the bedroom, in the bathroom, in front of friends and family. And basically what happens with case building, it shuts down open and honest communication. If you think about it simplistically, when we're in a relationship, we're either treating each other as allies or what? What's the other side? If you're not an ally, you're a what? It's an enemy. And when you treat each other as enemies, you're shut down, you're reserved, you're withholding information. And a lot of times when I was growing up, a lot of times around the dinner table, it was almost enemy conversation. Anything you said could and would be used against you. So when we get triggered, our communication goes to our hurt. And this is we're either communicating from our head, our heart, or our hurt. And our hurt is the reason I have my little dinosaur. It's the reptile brain. So when we're in our reptile brain, what's important to us is where's the danger? What my priority right now is safety. I need to know what the danger is. And here's the challenge is if another person is moving around a reptile, when you're in your reptile brain and you see somebody else, it could be your partner, your beloved, your kids, all of a sudden you go, oh, must be danger. So reptile versus reptile. Now I know this is pretty sophisticated stuff here. And just to let you know, this is what I taught both in prison for 8.5 years. I had a volunteer program, worked with inmates from minimum to maximum security, teaching them all about communication because most of them were in jail because they didn't know how to communicate either with themselves or with others. And violence right now is a terrible form of communication, but it's out of desperation. What are they saying? Can you hear me now? And if you look at what's going on in relationships and out on the streets, right now, there's a lot of people in America that don't feel heard. And what they do is they get louder and louder. And this is important to understand this principle, both for your most intimate relationships, for your relationship with your kids, family, with roommates. If people don't feel heard, they get louder. And there was a great, I think it was Sprint a while ago, did a great ad. Not that I promote ads, but there was a great ad. And what it said is, can you hear me now? So almost all communication, that's what we want. We want three things. We want to be, let me see if I can get a blank sheet here. Ah, yes, here we go. When we're communicating, what do we want? And if someone could write this in on the comments there, that would be awesome. Oh, you can't see the third one. So number one, when we're communicating, what do we want? We want to be heard. We want to be understood and valued. So if that's true for you, let me know. When you're communicating and you're talking to especially the people you love, what do you want? Do you want to be heard? I'm guessing the answer is yes, but I'd love some participation here. Do you want to be understood? And do you want to be valued? This is a huge gift, whether you're giving it to your kids, your spouse, your roommates, and even if you want to transform your relationship with yourself, give yourself that time so that you feel heard, understood, and valued. I'm feeling scared right now. I'm feeling stressed right now. I'm feeling whatever it is. Now, almost everybody's going to say, yes, you want that, right? So type that in, yes, no. If you don't want to, put no. But I'm guessing almost everybody that I've ever talked to, because I said a minute ago, I taught this in prison, but I've also taught it to at the Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado, because I worked with the professors there teaching compassionate and nonviolent communication. So this is the basics of almost all communication is we want to be heard, we want to be understood, we want to be valued. So what stops us in this process? And I'm going to show you, share my screen for a second and show you a picture of what it looks like a lot of times, communication and trying to get your needs met. Now, this is just a funny picture. There's two very powerful women arm wrestling, And that is what it looks like to communicate in a lot of households right now. It's like, no, hear me, no, hear me, no, hear me. My needs, I have to fight to get my needs met. And one of our basic needs is to be heard, understood, and valued. So how do we get out of this competitive communication with the people we love and switch over? So going back here, heard, understood, and valued, what's really important to know is if everybody wants this, and I haven't seen anybody who doesn't, and if you want to give this to your partner, the heard, understood, and valued, what's stopping us? So which of these, if you could type in, which of these causes the most problems? Hearing somebody, understanding them, and valuing them. And if you understand which one causes most of the problems, you're also going to be able to connect at a deeper level, stay compassionate, be courageous in your communication. And courageous is so important, and curious. So here we go. It is this one right here. What stops us oftentimes is we're afraid that understanding equals agreement. If I understand you and you know that I understand you, you're going to think that I agree with you. So all you've got to do to practice this skill is try to have a conversation across political lines right now. Sit down, a Democrat and a Republican, and sit down and try to talk and see if you can enter their world so that they feel heard, understood, and valued. And it doesn't mean that you agree. See, you don't have to agree with them. All you have to do is understand them, and understand them so that they get it, that you got it, that you can actually feed it back. Go, wow. So what I heard was this. So what I heard, let me see. And now if you really want the next level of communication, the most powerful communication is you feed it back and then you feel it. And it's like, here's what happens when you give empathy, empty me first. I'm actually going to empathy is when you enter, well, I'm going to give it two different ways. Empty me first. Empty me, listen to me, let me feel heard, understood, and valued. And then I'll empty you and hear you. And empathy, another way of saying it is, it ties in, empathy ties into intimacy. By the way, I'm a little bit dyslexic, so spelling in front of people, it always screws me up. So empathy and intimacy, two things that people crave in relationships. I've been coaching couples for over 25 years, and it is so critical. And it's simple, but not easy. You want to enter their world. It's like your kid well, I almost said your kid comes home from school, but your kid comes home from the living room where they're schooling, and they're upset. And it's like, what is our instinct? Our instinct is we want to fix it. We're fix-it buddies. And what our kids want, what our partner wants, and I'm guessing what you want is you want to be heard, understood, and valued. You want this triangle. This is the communication triangle. So right there, we're going to add something else. It gets just a little more complex. So if you want to, when you're speaking, you want to be heard, understood, and valued. So number one, Be conscious. What does conscious mean? Conscious means I'm aware of the impact I want to have. What's a message I want to convey to my partner that at the end of this conversation, do I want to feel closer or further away? Because if you think about it, I'm going to ask you to do this. I can see you out there in Facebook land and on YouTube, but put your hands together like this. And when I say go, what I want you to do is press really hard with your right hand. Now I see you. You got to do this. Ready, get set. Okay, go. Push, push, push. Okay. I am guessing like 99% of the time when I ask people to do this, when they do it, their hand is right in the same place. And what does that have to do with relationships, with communication, with all of this? It's got everything to do with it. Because when our right hand pushes, what did our left hand do? Push back. So anytime that we use force in communication, there gets resistance and pushback. If you look at that, the more that people are pushed down, the more that they push back. So it happens in politics. It's happening in America right now. It's happening with Black Lives Matter. The more that the one race or color has been pressed down, the more that they're going to push back. The more in relationships, the more that you try to force your opinion on someone, the more they're going to resist it. So it's learning how to communicate so it's not force. It's what people want more than almost anything is they want to feel heard, understood, and valued. And I started talking about that Sprint ad that for cell phones years ago. When we're communicating, we're always asking one question. What's that question? That's why that ad was just struck home. The question we're asking, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Because we're desperate to be what? Heard, understood, and valued. Take that little folder. The second part of this, that's the outcome that we want when we want someone to be listening to us. Then when we're speaking, if we're conscious, I'm conscious. What is it that I'm wanting from you? Because almost all communication, and this is a little bit heady, I'm going to get into the heart in a minute, but all communication in relationships, almost all communication, either we're trying to give a gift or we're wanting to receive a gift. We're wanting to give something to somebody or we're wanting to receive something from somebody. The problem is the way that we ask it almost guarantees a lot of the times they're not going to want to give it to us or they're not going to give it to us at all. You know, well, it's about dinner time. How come you don't cook me dinner right now? It doesn't feel like I'm asking for a gift, or I'm feeling really lonely and you need to hug me. You are being frigid and self-absorbed and you're narcissistic. So a lot of times we got to the place where we figure if we label them enough, if we do enough, all right, wrong color. This is sort of the warning label here. That's what not to do. If you want to be heard, understood, and valued, one of the major things not to do is to not make somebody feel bad, stupid, and wrong. And a lot of times, and I can fall in this trap myself, it happens on Facebook. Somebody offers an opinion about what's going on in the world, and somebody else offers another opinion, and they start in this bad, stupid, wrong world. Can't you see how stupid you are for believing in whatever? And the other person responds, no, you're stupid, I'm not. And it's this battle here. And what, to me, I'm getting political here, but I'm going to anyway. To me, what made America what it is today is because we handled diversity. We embraced diversity. And what's happening right now is we're getting more and more afraid of diversity. We're having less of a capacity for that. And what happens is we're pushing each other around. So if you want to have more connection in your relationship, here's one thing to avoid. Anything that implies bad, stupid, wrong. You made dinner wrong, you did the dishes wrong, you made love wrong. And like there's an inspiring thing, because like I say, I'm a relationship coach. I help couples transform the way they relate to each other. And think about this as a relationship strategy for getting more sex. Honey, you really aren't very good at pleasing me, but try harder. Whew. Do you think that message is going to get what you want? So there's a message that's starting with what? Bad, stupid, wrong. And that's going to create lots of resistance. So what you're wanting to do is create opening, not resistance. To create opening, you're wanting to enter their world. So when they communicate, maybe they're talking about why they haven't felt sexual and intimate right now, because there's some people that are so stressed out right now that intimacy is the last thing on their mind, and it's not personal at all. It's they're freaked out about what's going on with the economy, with Black Lives Matter, and trying to find a way to connect with each other and watching what's going on in the streets of America right now. Some people are totally freaked out with the COVID, and it's just an interesting time to be alive. So there's lots of stress. So when you're listening to your partner, what you want to be able to do is enter their world so that they feel what? The same thing. I'm going to say it over and over again. Super simple, not easy. What do they want? They want to feel heard, understood, and valued. And how do they know that they were heard, understood, and valued? One of the most important things you can do is feed it back. Let me tell you what I heard you say. And if it's really important what you're saying, there's another part to it. So the masculine and the feminine, there are differences. The masculine tends to have a smaller capacity in conversation. We need smaller chunks. So when my partner is talking to me, I need it in little chunks, and she can talk in, this is my container up here. I can hear this much, she can talk this much. It's not a good or a bad thing. It's just that if she wants to enter my world, and especially if it's emotional, if it's important, I need it in little chunks. Talk to me and it could be a sentence at a time or 2 sentences, and then have me feed it back. And how do you know when you're feeding it back, how do you know you're giving real empathy and create intimacy? Is when you enter their world, so you go, oh, no wonder. So when I didn't do the dishes last night and you woke up and there were dirty dishes, you told yourself the story that I don't care anymore, that I'm not going to do what I said I was going to do, that, that created this whole scary story for you. And that led towards, oh my God, we're going to, the relationship's over because the dishes weren't done. And I've heard stories like that it does our brain spins out. So the idea, though, is rather than say, that's ridiculous, that's so stupid, what happens when we're saying that? When we're trying to tell them through our mind, we're trying to logicalize away how they feel, logicalize away their pain. It doesn't work. So what can you do instead? You enter their world. Oh, honey. So when you saw the dishes, that was scary for you because you have a story that if, the dishes don't get done, then this doesn't get done. And pretty soon it spirals down into the relationship's over. So when I tell myself that story, I can feel it. I can feel how scary it is. No wonder. By the way, here's some magic words that most lovers never get to hear. These are like some of the sexiest words that especially the feminine loves to hear, but the masculine too. So be ready for this. This like makes the whole thing worthwhile. Tell me more. If you want to create real understanding and you want your partner to feel heard, understood, and valued, and by the way, one of the greatest aphrodisiacs out there is intimate. Empathy leads to intimacy. You tell your partner, I want to enter your world. I want to hear and understand and value. And then, oh my God, if you really want to go over the top, I want to know what your needs are. Because there's only one reason to be in a relationship. It's to get your precious needs met. Now, that might sound self-centered and narcissistic, and we're bantering all these labels around and codependent and all that. You know what? It's actually, think about it. In a relationship, when you stop getting your needs met, the relationship starts to die or is dead. Now, there's some relationships that have been together for 20 and 30 years, but they died 10 years ago because they stopped connecting. They stopped bonding. They moved from being in a relationship to being roommates. And when you stop connecting intimately and stop having sex and stop having, heart-to-heart communication, basically, you've moved out of the world of relationship and now you've moved into the world of roommates. So let's look at this. What do people want? Heard, understood, and valued. And then how do we communicate the best way? We start to become conscious. What is it I'm wanting? What is it that I want my partner to hear? What do I want them to feel? So I become conscious. That word over there at the edge, which you can't see, is compassionate. So conscious, compassionate, and then this third C, courageous. And this is critical because a lot of times, when we get scared, because what I want you to think about is, how comfortable do you feel being vulnerable? So I'll tell you, when I'm vulnerable, when I feel triggered and scared and vulnerable, and I do, even though I've been doing this for years, and I am an ex-Alaskan commercial fisherman. I spent 18 years doing the deadliest catch in Alaska. I left home at 17. I've taught in prison for 8.5 years. I've got a lot of rough and tumble in me, but when it comes to being vulnerable and talking about my feelings, I can get scared and I need to be courageous. Courageous is from the French word le coeur, from the heart. So from my heart. So where do I go when I get vulnerable? Well, I can get triggered. I can come as an attack, or I can come from my head, which is, neither of them really get me what I want. It's like learning how to come from my heart. If I speak from my heart and start with, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling vulnerable, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. It's really important because a lot of times unexpressed fear comes across as anger. And I coach couples all the time that the one partner was afraid, and rather than say, I'm afraid, they might start yelling at the other partner. It comes across as an attack. And when they do that, it triggers them and they're both here. So when I communicate, I want to start by being conscious. What is it I want my partner to hear? What is it I want them to feel? What am I committed to? Am I committed to an argument? Am I committed to upsetting my partner? By the way, thank you, Diane. I don't know which part is very good, but I appreciate it. So I get conscious. What is it I want? And then I get compassionate. And compassionate means to meet them where they're at, to enter their world. Compassion it's heart to heart connection. And then courageous, I share vulnerably. So when I start by being conscious, compassionate, and courageous, I'm much more likely to get heard, understood, and valued, and create empathy and intimacy in my relationship. So what I want to do is, in the middle of that, is avoid anything that implies bad, stupid, and wrong. I'm going to recommend 2 books here. One, again, mine. It's Streetwise. It was #1 on Amazon in 5 different categories, and in the top 10 in 9 different categories. So, and it was with therapists and couples alike. The other one I want to recommend is the book Hold Me Tight by Dr. Sue Johnson. And I love Sue's stuff. It's all about attachment theory and how we are basically built for bonding and connecting. And they did the baby experiments, and the baby experiments were years ago. But basically, if you don't touch and hold kids, now this was during, I think it was after World War II. I'm not sure the exact thing, but they had orphanages with these babies, and they were fed, and they got all their needs met except for touch. And these kids were dying, and they couldn't understand why. And we as human beings are built for bonding. And what creates the most triggers in us, the craziness in us, is when we're afraid we're going to lose our bonding. The problem is, a lot of times when we get triggered like this, our behavior almost guarantees that our partner doesn't want anything to do with us, because we come across and we are like attacking. So what can you do when your partner is totally triggered like this? I'm going to give you the magic things. This is, so tell me more is one. This is going to be a little bit longer, so. And you might want to write it down. Again, from the very beginning, I said this would be simple, not easy. When your partner is totally triggered, you could try to tell them that they shouldn't feel the way you feel right now. Happens a lot with the masculine and the feminine. The feminine is in their pain, their rage, whatever it is, they're hurt. And they might actually start here. They might start just hurting. And when the masculine comes in and tells them it's not logical, they shouldn't feel the way they feel, and they go from here to here because they're being told they shouldn't feel the way they feel, and that is very upsetting for most people, including myself. We all have masculine and feminine in us, and we're just doing this dance. Relationships are totally changing. There used to be there was a clear men's role, woman's role. And I don't know that it ever really worked, but at least it was clearer. And I'm not asking to go back that way. I think definitely not. But right now we don't have the manual. So we're trying to look at what are the different roles, whether it's a gay relationship, a straight relationship, a lesbian relationship. How do people get along with people? What do you do when your partner is in pain? Do you try to logicalize away their pain, or do you try to be with them? So I'm going to go back to that question, and I don't know if you can read it, but what do you need to feel safe right now? So when your partner is upset and triggered, what are they? Number one, they want to feel safe. That's it. Where's the danger? how do I protect myself? And if you can come in and go, honey, what do you need to feel safe right now? What happens is it gets them back into their feelings and connects to you. So if nothing else, test this a couple of times today. And if you look at people who are angry and upset and all of that, basically they don't feel safe. They're in their dinosaur brain. So you're trying to look for how to get people out of their dinosaur brain and back into their hearts. Is this making sense? So I'm going to put something up here. If you want to go to, I'm going to call it the relationship gym. Is this stuff simple? Yes. So is working out. If you want to get in great shape, there are 3 things you need to do. You need to eat better. You need to probably eat less, and you need to work out. How tough is that? It's very simple. It's just not easy. So it's the same sort of thing in relationships. If you want to transform your relationship, you need to be able to, well, actually, let me just do this. You want to have a great relationship. Here's the 7 things you need to do. Are you ready for this? There are 7 key things. And if you want to find out more, we have a course coming up. It's June 27th on a Saturday. But the 7 things that cause the most problems, and then the 7 skills. 7 most problems, 7 skills. The one thing that's caused so many problems in relationships I was talking about today is communication problem. Not being effective in your communication creates so much pain in relationships. So what's the solution? This is like your toolbox. Having effective communication tools where both of you feel heard, understood, and valued. Number 2 problem is needs not getting met. And a lot of people they don't even know how to name their needs. They don't notice them, and they have a hard time negotiating. There's a lot of shame around having needs. We have a culture of need shame. If you talk about your needs, people call you, yep, you got it, needy. And actually what I call you is human, alive. And when I worked for Tony Robbins years ago, he was one of my first eye-opening mentors. I can think of my life before Tony and after Tony, very different. And I used to introduce Tony on stage many years ago when he was there would be like 200 or 300 people in the room. I did that for a little while and ended up working on his staff. It was a good time. It really was. Anyway, Tony talks about 6 needs. If you go watch his TED Talk about the 6 basic needs for certainty and uncertainty and being a priority and love and connection. If you want a great relationship, you need to have a vocabulary of needs and be able to talk about them. Almost every relationship is going to have some form of conflict and misunderstanding. Another one of my mentors, a guy named Marshall Rosenberg, who created nonviolent communication, one of his favorite quotes, or my favorite quote of his, is that the normal outcome of most communication is misunderstanding. We're going to have misunderstandings. We're going to have conflicts. We're going to have upsets. The question is, what are you going to do with them? Do you have the tools to turn that into something where it brings you closer, or does each one drive you apart, like slowly bruising the relationship until there's hardly anything left? So learning about how to turn conflicts, how to repair them and turn them into connection. We also, all of us, get wounded and have triggers. The more wounded we are when we go into a next relationship, the less available we are. The more that we clear up our past, the more that we can be present and have possibilities for the future. That works out kind of well. Like you clear up the past, that's where you heal the wounds and the hurts and heal your history. Or you end up punishing our current partner for the sins of the past. So we clear up the past, connect and get present, create possibilities for the future. If your future doesn't have a lot of possibility in it, if you're with somebody who's afraid or unwilling to commit, the reason they're unwilling to commit is because they haven't cleared up, or you haven't cleared up the past. There's too much past in the present, and there's no possibility for the future. Hopefully that makes sense. Trust. So number 1, communication. Number 2, needs. Number 3, being able to handle conflict. Number 4, wounds and triggers. Number 5, broken trust. And there's 2 types of trust. There's, do I trust you in a relationship? And when you think of it, trust in a relationship, do I trust you to keep your agreements? Do I trust you to respect my boundaries? Do I trust you that you're going to treat my needs well, that you're going to treat my needs as precious and not a burden? And do I trust that you have my back? That's one set of trust. So broken words, broken agreements, betrayals, affairs, those are all in that area. The second part of trust, which we don't talk about nearly as much, but it may actually be even more important, is do I trust me in a relationship with you? Am I going to keep my agreements with myself? Am I going to respect my boundaries when I'm around you? Am I going to make sure that I stay strong and meet my needs? Or am I going to become a martyr and make it all around my partner? And I've been in those relationships. So broken trust, so we need to learn, have a skill of how to rebuild it. Lost intimacy, there's 3 shades of intimacy: physical, emotional, and sexual. And the last thing is dealing with differences, difficulties, and decisions. So those are all skills. And we're going to cover those at the course. I actually have a request. I just created a survey that ties in with these skills, and I would love it if people would go take the survey. And if you do take the survey, one of the things I'm offering at the end of the survey is you can schedule a half an hour relationship clarity session with either me or Heidi Love, who's my partner in training this, and we'll help you get clear on where you are in your relationship, where you want to go, and what are the roadblocks, what's in the way, which of these 7 things that you need to work on. So I'm going to end a little bit early today. I would love any feedback, what you got from our time together. And I want to just end with giving a shout out to Love Coach Academy. Love Coach Academy is run by Scott Katamas. Scott Katamas is one of the most brilliant, empathetic guys that I know. And it's actually, we worked well together because Scott, he is all heart. And if I need empathy, I go to Scott for empathy. I tend to be a little bit of the mad professor of relationships. So what I want to do is be able to explain how everything works, fit it together, and then connect the heart. So one of the things Scott does is he teaches people how to be love coaches, and that's an amazing tool. So I am going to give you one last closing thing, because I realize it's been behind me the whole time. This is what's running and sometimes wrecking your relationships. I call it your ROS. This is your relationship operating system. If you pictured an iceberg, this is what's beneath the iceberg. So the only reason you're on this call today, or take any of my courses, is you want to get a different result in your relationship. You want something to happen that's not happening, or you want something that is happening to stop. So like you want your partner to listen to you. You want to stop arguing. You want more connection. So to get a change in the relationship, you need to take an action. Actions control your results. And what are the actions we take? Some of them are conscious, a lot of them are not. Our habits and patterns, those 2 things right there, are the unconscious parts of our relationship that have a huge impact on it. And what I'm trying to look at all the way through are your habits, patterns, and beliefs. Do they support you connecting, or are they sabotaging your relationship? And a lot of problems come from we have limiting beliefs about love. Love is relationships, like relationships are dangerous. If I'm vulnerable, then my partner will take advantage of me. See, I always thought you needed to be tough in relationships. That's what I learned from my Irish alcoholic, tough dad. Um, and I could hold a grudge. You know, I went through 1 divorce, 4 broken engagements. So I have been down that path. And I could hold a grudge for a week or 2. I thought that made me stronger in a relationship. Really, it just made me cold and distant and no fun to be in a relationship with. It was sabotaging. It was my sabotaging pattern. And what I needed to learn was a whole new way of communicating, how to be vulnerable, how to be open, how to be connected, how to be compassionate. So part of what's going to be the hero's journey is to be able to discover what are your habits, patterns, and beliefs. Are they supporting your relationship? Are they sabotaging it? And what's your vision for the relationship? Like, what are your visions? What's your value? Where do you want to be 3 years from now, 5 years from now? What's important to you in your life and with your love? So that's it. If there's any ways that I can help, let me know. We do the course, the relationship course. That's going to be a group course. That's January. I've been locked up too long. It's going to be June 27th. It's a 5-hour Zoom webinar. It is going to be eye-opening, challenging, and it's $97. It's ridiculously cheap. It'd be $697. So if you've got questions, you can message me. You can get a hold of me. You can go to the arguelesslovemore.net website. I really totally appreciate it. Thank you for your comments. Have a great day. And you can join back tonight. And tonight, actually, Saturday night, my partner in this, Scott Katamas, does a huge event. And you can find out more about Scott at the, let me see, where is his? Oh, there we go. Love Coach Academy. So go to the Love Coach Academy. He's had Marianne Williamson's been on there, Deepak Chopra, a bunch of different very powerful speakers. So join us Saturday night. That's tonight for Scott's call. And I hope you got a lot out of today. Have a great day.